Hello and welcome everyone to the next episode of the Less as Expert initiative, an event that is brought to you by the soft skills stream of the Global BA practice at EPAM. As today in our company we are closing the IT conference dedicated to the AI, it feels that it is a great place and great opportunity to take a step into the other direction and look at the other side of the coin, as this initiative is all about balancing the AI hype with what really makes us stand out as IT professionals, our soft skills. And I know that I say this every single time when I discuss the skill that you are selecting as the audience for the topic of our discussion. But today, actually, we would like to focus on one of the most important skills, which is decision making. Because whether it's picking the right approach for the project or handling a tricky situation with people or making your career choices. Good decisions will shape everything that we do in the IT industry. And that's why we have a great lineup of experts with whom we will have this opportunity to have this conversation today. So let me invite them to the stage one by one, starting with Zsolt. So Zsolt, it's so great to have you for the, I think, third time now already in our Let's Ask Expert session. Some of our participants might already know you, but if you can still introduce yourself to our audience, that would be great.
Yeah, sure. Thank you very much. Thanks for inviting me again, and welcome everybody to the session. So, my name is Zsolt. I'm located in Hungary, Budapest. I'm a soft skill and leadership trainer here at EPAM for 3 years now, a little bit more. And I had a different career. I worked in marketing in FMCG environment for 20 years and 15 years in different leadership positions. And then one of my big decisions, was to switch careers into training and coaching. And then now I am leading and conducting those trainings regarding leadership and soft skills, along with decision making as well. And I'm also responsible for the EPAM's well-being learning portfolio, designing those solutions that we have for well-being. So yeah, happy to be here.
And happy to have you here with us in this session. We also have today second expert, Stan Shepitiak, a business analyst manager from Krakow. So Stan, welcome to the session today. Can you also introduce yourself to our audience?
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me, and it's really exciting to be part of this whole initiative. So yeah, I'm with EPAM since 2015. My career started back in these times as a business process consultant. Then I moved to a BA role, working with R&D with different companies, and then moving on to EPAM. Here I am now a head of business analysis discipline in Krakow, which is also exciting opportunity which I had last year, which I have started last year, to kind of combine a bit of this, project skills and also a bit of people management skills with the focus, of helping our BAs here to grow and to plan their future. So excited to be with you guys today and happy to answer any kind of, topics we'll have going along.
Was it your decision to become the head of Krakow BA discipline, or?
I mean, I had I had a choice, of course, but yeah, that was certainly I thought about for some time. But yeah, that was a really nice next step for me. Thank you.
All right, great. So happy to have you here. And last but not least, we also have Jonathan Story, Vice President of EPAM in the business analysis domain. So John, so good to have you here with us as well.
Well, thank you. And yeah, good afternoon, everyone. And just I was going to say 9.5 years with EPAM now. And just looking at that picture, maybe I need to update my picture a bit. Thinking about that, I don't know. But yeah, I've been variously business analyst consultants for more years than I can probably remember, across a range of industries. You worked in sort of consulting or systems integration or client-facing roles for over 25 years. So gives me I guess a range of experience, and more recently started leading teams of business analysts and product managers. So at the moment, I look after business analysis and product teams across Western Europe and in the Middle East now as well. So yeah, and the statement at the bottom, loving multicultural EPAM, and I guess lots of people from lots of different places, and that's what makes it a lot of fun for me.
Variety is the spice of life, as they say.
Absolutely,
Right? That's
absolutely.
great opportunity to widen horizons and just to get to know people from all over the world.
Definitely.
So let us begin our today's session. So I'm stopping sharing the screen, and we'll just have as always, a nice, friendly conversation about the topic of decision making. So let me open up with a very simple, very small question. What was the last decision that you recently made that made you actually happy? So maybe John, let's start with you, as you were the last one to introduce yourself.
Wow. So is this work related?
Not necessarily, just in general, like
Not work
any kind of.
related. The last decision that made me very happy was choosing to go on holiday in Crete, where the temperature was 32 degrees and the sun was shining. But no, I think decision that makes you happy. Most of them, when you think the decision has positive consequences. Yeah, maybe we can talk about what if there is such a thing as a good decision or bad decision later. But something that you think, yeah, that worked out pretty well. That was successful. We did what we intended. So I guess that happens every day, I think.
Mm-hmm. Stan, what about yourself? What was your happy decision?
You know what? Out of the recent ones, I think coming over to the office today to meet you, because yeah, actually we are friends with Jan for I think 10 years now. We just thought about that today in the kitchen basically, and even though that was kind of a coincidence that we have met, Jan being a trainer for me being a BA freshly joined UBS project, and we had a lot of trainings on different topics, but as you know, investment banking is full of rules and procedures, let's say. So, but nevertheless, yeah, I think one of the very nice things that I appreciate EPAM for is actually meeting nice people over whole my career here, and that's really something I appreciate. So I think, yeah, that's a small example of that. Thank you.
Okay, and Zsolt?
Yeah, so for me, I would say I introduced some dietary changes in my life. It was in the beginning of summer, so not quite recently, but actually the effects of that decision is paying off now. So like actually I'm feeling way better than I was feeling at the beginning of summer. So it's not just decision made, but decision that was I was keeping to that decision, and I was holding on to that decision, and it paid off.
This is actually quite inspiring because I have made so many decisions in my life to start weight loss program, and with every decision I bought more and more equipment. So I have dumbbells, I have bench, I have rubbers, I have like all you can imagine. But the human factor of weight loss was still missing. So maybe I will follow your lead and I will be more successful in the future. But going forward and talking and aligning a bit more still with the IT conference. So since the whole IT conference that we had at EPAM this week was about AI, let me ask you this. What is the decision that you would never hand over to AI in whether it's your professional life or whether it's your personal life? Maybe Stan, what would be the
You know what? I would probably be a bit conservative here. I mean, AI to me is, of course, an additional aspect to consider, right? And certainly something worth of checking in lots of environments, in lots of cases. At the same time, I would rather say, it's never a decision in itself, right? And I can't hardly imagine, a situation where I'm just basically typing in a question and then acting on what the AI have advised for. But nevertheless, of course, everything related to mostly people, related to people component, to maybe soft skills, anything which is hard to quantify, because again, it's here. It basically, AI gives you anything based on what you enter, right? So those things sometimes are hard to enter, hard to plug into the system to somehow evaluate it, even with any kind of old algorithm. So I would say probably that is the thing which I wouldn't just use straight away.
John?
I think I would absolutely agree with what Stan said there. I would be tempted to say I wouldn't hand over any final decision to AI. AI as just a tool. We had an in-person session in the London office yesterday with a lady for a startup. They developed this tool, Una Mundo, that engages with children and whatever. And she went through the journey that they'd had with Una Mundo. And bearing in mind this tool, Una Mundo, was engaging with children. Some of the responses they got back to children, some of the biases and some of the things AI said was, you thought, whoa, in front of children? No, never. So it just illustrates that, obviously AI is based on the models that can be trained. So I wouldn't hand over everything completely. There's still that little bit of intuition experience to add to it. So yes, I would use it to help, but I would add my own little bit of thinking in there as well.
Mm-hmm. Zsolt?
Yeah, probably we all agree here then, because because I have the same opinion. So like I wouldn't use AI currently, but it's important, like it's currently at this stage of development for my decisions. It can be some kind of a supportive tool to support my decisions, but ultimately the decision should be made by me, because why I'm thinking about this is because decision making is also related to critical thinking. So like how we can analyze those answers that come from AI, and how can we validate those answers. It's a key skill. It's gonna be a key skill still. And then I don't want actually my cognitive abilities to decline. That's another very important part that I would not hand over probably decisions at this point of time.
Mm-hmm.
That's important to say.
Mm-hmm. However, sometimes we might end up in this state of what I like to call as a business analyst, this analysis paralysis, that we are overwhelmed with the amount of information, overwhelmed with the data. So like what advice can you give to our audience about when to stop analyzing, thinking, and when to actually make the decision? Are there any tips, are there any frameworks that you are using in your day-to-day job? So maybe John, let's start with you on this one.
Yeah, I would maybe it marks me down as a bit of a dinosaur, but I quite like I'm a visual mind map sort of person. So yes, you again the data is a tool. Data, hopefully you get good insights from it, but you don't always get insights, do you? So I'm a sort of mind map kind of guy. So I like to explore each path through the problem myself and come out with a solution. I guess, if you're with a team, for example, there are a bunch of matrix. The value effort matrix is always a good one, just to start the thinking within the team. I've sat through a number of client sessions where they're building their mind maps, and WSJF, weighted shortest job first, just to prioritize competing initiatives. So that kind of thing can help. But again, it's just tools. There's always that bit of intuition there as well. But I like to, if it's got to that point where I've got so much information that I can't work it out, I tend to try and plot it through myself on a mind map, look at the relationships, and say I'm an old business analyst, so I like to draw things out and see it visually before I can do that.
Mm-hmm. Stan, while working on projects, we sometimes do this discovery, and we need to, at some point, make the decision: are we comfortable with the amount of information we've collected for the requirement? So, when do you draw that line?
You know what? Even though this is maybe not absolutely the technique for this purpose, but I really like the idea of this, what is maybe called an elevator pitch, right? So if assume you ride with a stakeholder, you ride with someone in the elevator to some kind of top floor, and you have those like 30 seconds to summarize what you need to summarize, what you are aiming for. To me, one of the biggest values of business analyst is actually the ability of a good BA. I'm not sure if I'm the good BA, of course, but the one imaginative is to be able to explain complex things, if necessary, into very simple terms in a very short manner, right? So the ability to tell complex things using 2-hour meetings, it doesn't require a lot of effort, right? It's quite easy actually. Just pull a lot of data, you drop that into the audience, and that's it. But to be able to make some quick conclusions, and to maybe sometimes generalize something, sometimes skipping some of the factors, but going into the core of the issue or core of the solution, I think that's the most important. So I try imagining myself being with a counterpart who's actually an expert in that field, and trying to imagine, look, if I would like to explain you anything or provide you with a backlog definition, in that short time frame, would I believe myself, right? Would I really think, being that other person, that what I'm proposing or what I'm describing actually makes sense? And yeah, if I'm feeling like that, that's already maybe a summary worth using going forward, and that's kind of sets apart this noise and excessive information, excessive data that we sometimes have.
Mm-hmm. And Zsolt, is there a possibility to learn how to avoid analysis paralysis?
Yeah, we need to know why it happens, right? So like why we have this analysis paralysis, and one of them usually is like we have the fear that we're gonna make a bad decision, and we want to just analyze more and more and more to actually have the optimal decision. And usually, I think it's important to one thing that helps, that actually put a time constraint on your decision actually will help. And probably it's sometimes it's an external time constraint, but you can have an internal one, even though it's not very urgent, but you can have a time constraint on the decision that will help with this paralysis. And the other one is you just need to define what kind of threshold you want to have for data. So like, what is the good enough, and what is the enough amount of data that we want to have an optimal decision. And the other thing is that the insights. So they're not the data that is actually important, right? But what are the insights that we conclude from those? And if it's like in terms of business, if it's like supporting our business strategy or vision, that we can already work with the insights concluded from the data. So actually, you can. I don't know if we can learn this, but definitely we can practice that and learning by doing it, and not be totally afraid of like bad decisions, because usually there's a quote, like I think it's from Mark Twain, that like good decisions comes from experiences, but experiences are coming from bad decisions. So definitely don't be afraid to decide, because it might happen. It's not a good decision. We don't know at the moment of the decision, but then you will be able to learn from it, and I think that's the key.
And I think it's also quite important, the fact that if we don't make any decision, that is a decision in itself. And that's why I think, and I very much like what you mentioned about this quote from Mark Twain, because there is this saying also, there are no experienced sailors on the calm sea.
Yeah.
So it's good to sometimes fail, good to sometimes have make mistakes, because then we just learn so much more from it. But question that I have for all of you is what helps you make the decision on your day-to-day job. So John, you've already mentioned that you sometimes like to draw out certain things as a old soul of a business analyst. So are there any other tools, frameworks, something that helps you, especially, for example, you have a 50-50 decision that you just don't know which one would be better? I don't know, flipping the coin, will it work? Or maybe there are other things. What can help?
Yeah, no, I think it not necessarily a framework, but decisions are decision making. I mean, essentially a problem, but it's really a team sport, isn't it? Decision making and things in general is a team sport. So I would try and try and consult someone. There's always someone there whose perspective or opinion you value to help you make that. Ultimately, yes, the decision's yours, but generally we're in a company full of really smart, talented people with lots of different perspectives. So I long ago realized I was never gonna be the smartest person in the room. So there's always a smart person around here to ask. Yeah, you're gonna have to. So at some point, you're gonna have to go for one or the other. But I would tend to get another opinion, and also, and then apart from that, you would look at, okay, where are we heading with this? And Zsolt mentioned strategy. Yeah, okay, if that's where we're heading, how is this going to help us along the way? So what are the key parts of that strategy or that approach that we're looking for? How does that support them? Which one supports it best? And go with that. As I said, it's also, again, as Zsolt said, it's also a moment in time thing. So you're not always going to have the right information or everything you need at the time. So at some point, you're going to have to take a bit of a risk and go with it based on intuition, advice, whatever.
Stan, your thoughts?
I would probably very much support what John has just mentioned, and I would also even maybe support it with a quote of certain Tywin Lannister, the imaginative guy from the known series, where he said that he asked the question, "What makes a good king?" Right, and actually, what makes a good king is ability to listen to a good counsel. And I think the first and maybe foremost part of a good decision is not in the decision itself, but in ability to be surrounded by people who actually are able and willing to provide you with a good counsel. And here, this is one of the very important topics nowadays with all the information and all the what's happening with AI, right? Because AI could in a way act as a counsel, but at the same time, having really qualified people around who are able to tell you when you're being mistaken, when you're blind to or you're not seeing some of the issues as a manager. I think that's a very important thing where, unfortunately, I don't think AI can't step in right now, even though it can step in different areas, right? So I would probably state it this way.
Zsolt?
Yeah, I think it also depends on the type of decision, right? So you need to make because like there are like everyday decisions, like what am I wearing on this day, right? So, like how do I dress?
What to eat for breakfast?
Yeah, what to eat for breakfast, and of course in those decisions, routine can help you, right? So like if you have a routine of like a habit of like what to eat for breakfast because it's healthy, like you don't have to think much about that decision. So definitely in those everyday decisions, it can help you if you have some kind of a habit or a routine, especially because we have like this paradox of choice. So we have a lot of choices, and that can overwhelm us in our everyday lives. So that's like one type when it's the everyday decisions, and there is some other types, like if you have a business decision, right, or if you have an existential decision. So who do I marry, where to relocate, what to do with my life that is meaningful. So those are the questions that you don't have any model for that. So like all the models in decision making are one is that they are simplification of the reality, and the other one is that they just ask you the questions. They don't give you the answers. They ask you the questions, and you ultimately need to make that decision. So what I find useful, especially in those, not just with the existential decisions, but also in the business maybe, is that if you have personal values. So if you have some values that you base your decision on, so these criteria and these values, personal values can be anything. So if I say, my value is freedom, then what is freedom for you? So what does it mean for you? How does it show up in an everyday situation? And how will you know that if it's met or not met? So if you have values, it will guide you, especially in uncertainty. when you don't have, you can ask, if I decide this, will it bring me closer to freedom or to my value, or will it take me further? And that's why I call these values beacons in the sea. So like actually they can guide you. And in teams it's the same. So if the team has values, if an organization has values, so those decisions can be backed up by those values because they are pretty solid if you look at time. And that's why it can help you with this uncertain, situations where you need to decide.
That's a great answer, that is. That's a great answer.
We are actually with Zsolt sometimes conducting the training called the customer focused communication. And in that training, there is this question: in your day-to-day work, on what do you focus? Do you focus on customer? Do you focus on EPAM? Or do you focus on the team? And, and we have two EPAM values that actually goes contradict with one another, because you have focus on the customer and you have act as a team. Right, so that's, I think here a very helpful value comes in as well, the act with integrity, to be aligned with your own goals, with your own values, with your own beliefs. And I think that's something that can guide the way.
Yes, and you need to define what that is for you. So values are like words, like freedom and so on, and act with integrity. So you have to discuss it with your team what that means for them in a specific work environment or in a specific Monday. What do they mean by those values? And for your personal values, you also need to work on them a little bit to define them. And that takes time, of course, but it eventually helps you. If you want to switch a job, for example, you can decide, like, is that job basically adhere to my values or not? So what are important for me in life and work?
Mm-hmm. Now, coming back, Stan, to what you've mentioned about Tywin Lannister and about the king that is using the advice of the council. Eric Fromm, in his book Escape from Freedom, describes that sometimes people are too afraid of making the decision, and that actually he mentioned that the already ancient Greek philosophers knew that those who are the best to rule other people also are smart enough not to do that, just not to be punished for any bad decisions. So they prefer just to steer from behind the wheels. But sometimes we need to find the courage in ourselves to make a decision sooner or later, because like I've mentioned, not making a decision in itself. So what advice can you give to the people who are struggling with making a decision, and with actually, where to find the courage, where to actually obtain that guidance? Because I remember back in the university years, we used to fantasize with colleagues that it would be so amazing to just save our life as a game, live 5 years into the future, and if we are not happy with the result of our life, reload the save and relive the 5 years once again. But just life doesn't work that way. So what we can do to help us make that decision and to find that courage?
What I would say, I'm not sure if that's entirely true for all types of the projects that we have, but I think we are lucky enough to work in an environment where our mistake does not result in loss of life, right? And that's something we need to remember every time when we become too stressed about those decisions. Because again, being an operator of a nuclear submarine who's making the decision, absolutely, or surgeon, or whoever else, or a judge who makes a decision if someone would be punished or not for something. These are the types of decisions I would be afraid of, to be honest. And I can't really tell the easy way to do that. Some people say that the very experienced doctors, they need to learn how to somehow separate them from looking at the patient as a really a person who becomes part of you, because otherwise you would not be able to live with those decisions maybe. Again, we are lucky enough to be in a situation where we need to strive for excellence here. We need to understand the burden of our decisions. Sometimes these would result in some financial results for the customer or for EPAM, but in the end of the day, have this space for an error, right? And this in itself, I think, should somehow reassure us that yeah, we will make those those errors from time to time. We don't want to make those twice, of course, or more. But once upon a time, making a wrong decision in IT world shouldn't break this world right apart. So yeah.
I remember I saw a meme some years ago saying that no matter how much you will fail, you will never have to tell your boss, "Sir, I just stopped a $290 million satellite onto the floor." And there was like a picture of a satellite crashed. Yeah, so,
Yep.
John, what do you think about this?
I think, I mean, no matter, I guess, what got you into a position to have to make that decision. You're in that position. You've been hired because of your skills and experience, and you are in a position to make such a decision. So chances are you're the best person to make that decision. So maybe yeah, and I guess everybody suffers to some extent, what they call imposter syndrome. So think, oh, am I good enough? Am I strong enough? But yeah, you've been offered a job. People are paying you to do what you do. You're the best person to make the decision. Do it. Yeah. If it it doesn't have such a positive outcome, then obviously you're going to have to be the person that's going to sort it out. But yeah, have the confidence that I'm here because people think I'm good enough to make the decision. So here we go. Do it.
Do you sometimes still have imposter syndrome?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think I said before, sometimes I look at all the smart people around me and I go, whoa, yeah, look at this. For instance, we started the product management competency a few years ago now, and you look at all these people that we have now who've really delivered amazing results in different organizations, and I think, oh, they're far smarter than I am. But you know what? I also have far too many years of experience. So I'm in the position I am because people think I'm good enough to be here. So you know what? Based on my experience and anybody else, I'm going to make a decision. And if it's not the right decision or optimal, I probably know where to go or how to sort it out. But I guess it's that confidence that I'm the right person to make that decision because someone's asked me to. So here we are.
So, Zsolt, are there any trainings or any techniques which we can follow just to help us make the decisions and help us find the courage in this age of uncertainty?
Yeah, I mean, definitely self-confidence is one of the key elements. So, and nurturing that self-confidence within you. So, like, actually looking back at the week, this is Friday, right? So, actually, if you spend 10 minutes of your time every Friday looking back and say, what can I be proud for this week? What are decisions I made which were great? What are the things that I do? How did I help other people? And basically just affirming yourself, reassuring yourself that you are okay, that you have done a lot, and also like you can be proud of those things. And you have done a lot this week, not just the to-do list. We need to have a done list as well. So that helps, and also starting to accept that you can't make a perfect decision. That's already a great starting point. So you free yourself from the burden of, I need to make the best decision that is ever have been made, and just this trust, not just in yourself but in your team. So trust in your team, trust in others, trust the process, that life is like something like you don't know the future, right? But you need to move forward. So you decide once, and then you have the power, and this is, I think, important. You have the power to decide once again. So it's not like you decide something and it's going to be a fatal, you can never change it kind of thing. So definitely, I would recommend this. Like move forward, even if you don't know if it's the right direction, because especially with complex problems, you may not even know where you want to get to, right? Because there's no end game. Like we don't know the end game.
Happiness,
Yeah, I mean,
whatever that is.
yeah, whatever that is, right? So like, yeah, you need to define that for yourself. So you might not know your end goal, and then you need to test. You just, make a decision, do something, you experience that, and you say, oh, is it like something good or bad? Or like, how do I decide once again? So actually, you're testing your experience, and you take it from there. So you can't really plan everything, especially in uncertainty. You can think a lot about that, like planning, but eventually you need to move, and then, take it from there. So one step at a time.
And then adapt to whatever changes, right?
Yeah.
I think if I can just, sorry, and I add to that, I think for me, when agile methods and agile mindset started coming up, that sort of almost revolutionized my thinking, not just about projects and whatever, but about things like decisions in general. You can only make a decision based on what you know at the time, and then something else like, like I remember we bought a house. We had to get a mortgage to buy a house and you get it at a certain interest rate. Then in the UK, suddenly interest rates. We bought the house. We were in there. Suddenly interest rates went up to 15%, and we thought, oh, then the payments sort of doubled at least overnight. But we had no way of knowing that. So, did we make a bad decision? Well, we made a decision based on what we knew at the time that we thought. So, my wife beats herself up about it, constantly. But I said, look, what do you expect? You have to go with it, commit, and then just be ready to pivot. So that more agile way of thinking, I think, is very relevant, as Zsolt said.
Mm-hmm. You, John, also mentioned before that critical thinking is a very important factor of decision making. But are there any other skills that can help or that will in the upcoming future become critical when it comes to the decision making process for IT leaders, for IT managers? So what areas should our employees or our colleagues around us evolve and develop in the upcoming future to make the decision making process easier?
Sorry, was it me?
Yeah. Just
all right.
Just to continue.
I think I think it's the for me everything is moving so quickly. So Zsolt said that experimentation, the ability to obviously understand where you think you're headed, but have that ability to it's almost like a build, measure, learn. It's build, do something, test it. If it's not working, pivot, move away. But I said, not beat yourself up about is it right or is it wrong. You're making the best decision at the time. But if you can test it quickly enough, you can get some feedback and move on. So for me, it's that the speed, the pace of how you can sort of build something, test it, deliver it, and that will help you make decisions because you're then basing it on real feedback. So I think I think it's that pace, and again, it's not you're never really alone in business, in teams, in organizations like EPAM. So take the views. So be collaborative. Try and be in a position to communicate your vision, your plan, so that others can help you make those kinds of decisions.
Mm-hmm. Stan, what about yourself? Do you see any skills that will become critical in the upcoming future?
I would say, in a way, it's like an informational hygiene. Being able to separate ourselves from part of that informational info noise around us.
Yeah.
And I always think about that from the perspective that if we imagine a company, an average company anywhere, in 80s or beginning of 90s, they had a limited number of systems there, right? But that number of systems grows. And if I look now at some of, for example, banks, which are, often they just add something new, they rarely remove those systems because of the legacy and risks. And, being an architect of that system and understanding the relationships and everything now versus 20 years ago could be, I think, a different feat, right? Because that's completely different league, and now you have myriad of new tools and technologies added there every day, and therefore we as individuals have the same may have the same issue in the end. We have really lots of sources of information, sources of advice for the decision making, for example, and sometimes those would be actually contradictory, and those would be and both of these contradictory advices would look reasonable to you, right, from some angle. So therefore, ability to somehow filter this out, to somehow prioritize all those pieces of information to put together something like a puzzle in your head, that's something I would see as a really crucial key skill.
Zsolt, have you identified any increase of demand for various different soft skill training that might help with the decision making?
Yeah, I think critical thinking is one of the trainings that are really popular, and it is becoming, we see a growing trend in terms of participants, because especially AI. So we need to interpret those answers, interpret those things that we see from AI, and to be able to tell what is valid and what is not valid. So for me, critical thinking, I think it's important, and for you as a professional, it's also advisable to maintain this kind of cognitive agility. So and to train your mind not to be so prevent your cognitive decline. This is what I usually say. So what I see is skills are very, the half time of skills, which means that 50% of your knowledge to become out there, and it's 3 years. So 50% of your knowledge in 2 years will be lost. So skills are rising and spiking and then falling. So this is what we see, and what we saw from the research that that we have on skills is that there are some foundational skills that people can develop apart from these tech skills. So what we see is that people who can relearn quickly, right, these spikes and falls are the ones that have a good problem-solving skill. So it means that they have this opportunity mindset. So if something happens, then they see the opportunity versus not just how it will destroy my life, but how it will improve it. And the other thing that they need to have is that clear communication. So do they have clear communication style, and can they work in teams and working with others? So collaboration. So if they have these 3 fundamental skills, what we see from the research, they can relearn more quickly.
This is actually something that in one of the episodes of Let's Ask Experts that we discussed in the past about the art of adaptability, and just being able to, in this everlasting world of evolution and change, that it is just so crucial to be on top of the things, and not dwell too much on the past, and being just this open-minded for the change that is upcoming. But if you would have to choose one superpower for better decision making out of the 3, speed, wisdom, or luck, then which would you pick and why? So Zsolt, which one would you choose?
So which was that? Speed,
wisdom, luck.
Luck. Okay. So usually, we have this saying that luck is basically when preparedness meets the opportunity. Right. So I wouldn't consider luck. I would say wisdom. So we actually are clever. So usually human beings are clever, and with those cognitive abilities and what you learn. But we rarely talk about how can we make a team wiser, or an organization wiser, or ourselves wiser. What is wisdom? So I don't think we talk enough of that in our lives. So I definitely would focus on wisdom, because usually you are the one who makes that decision, and And sometimes being clever is not enough.
Hmm. Stan, what about yourself? What would you choose? Speed, wisdom, luck?
You know what? I can't select speed, I guess, because one of the feedbacks I received from my managers several times already, I guess, was that in some cases I'm making those decisions too quick. So I think that's the opposite for me. So I sometimes I
But that
think
can
I
be
need to.
efficient.
Yeah, but sometimes it's wrong. It's just plain wrong. Quick but wrong. So this is rather something I would need to learn to and develop on my side. Even though I really try to think about myself as a rational person, I would say luck is something which sounds good to me, good enough. Very often when I think about the decisions I made in the past, which were actually good decisions in the hindsight, they were almost a decision based on luck, because at that point of time I had, for example, very little information, very little criteria really to make an extensive, throughout analysis of what to do. Sometimes it was partially intuition, mentioned by John in the beginning, right? So sometimes it's just, something subconscious, which I hardly can explain, but I just thought, yeah, probably that's the best or the easiest way to resolve an issue. And in the end, it was it. So I would say it's a luck, but not from the perspective of some, magic and stars alignment, but rather something subconscious, maybe somewhere deep in our mind, which we can't really explain in a quick rational terms, but still which is based on our previous experience, on something which we did before or observed before.
So, for example, taking a mortgage with a high floating interest rate and hoping that it will decrease over a period of time and that you'll be lucky with lower payments per month. But actually,
Probably.
talking about the speed, like, isn't this one of the agile principles that we are supposed to fail early? So even if we make a decision quickly and it's a wrong decision, we can quickly evolve and recover from that. So, John, what would you choose? Luck, speed, or wisdom?
Well, I hope I'm lucky because I have a Euro Millions ticket for tonight, so I hope I'm lucky. But I think I think it's wisdom. And I would build on that. I don't think we spend enough time. There's my mother used to say, stop contemplating your navel and do something. But I don't think we spend enough time reflecting on what we've done and why that happened. Because maybe it's as I've got older, you start thinking back on a few things and you think, maybe I could have done that a bit differently or whatever. But I think it's the wisdom, because the wisdom and the reflection, I think you learn. And Stan, you mentioned the intuition again. Intuition comes from that, I think, the embedded wisdom that you have, and that collection of experience and whatever in your head, and that's the foundation for the intuition. So I think it's the wisdom to say, to basically make a decision, but understand why the result came out as it did, to think on it so that maybe you approach it. If something went wrong, maybe you approach it differently next time. If that's wisdom, then I think I would go for that.
Hmm. And we also talk here about, in general, soft skills altogether. And question which I have for you is how we can find the right balance between relying on the data that will support our decision and between our intuition and the experience that we have. So where to draw the line? Was it 50-50, 60-40, or depends on the situation? So maybe Stan, what do you think about this?
You know what I would say, it depends on this, the complexity of the data that we have, right? Of course, having the data is better than not having the data. Knowing how to filter this data is even better. Yeah, of course, ideal situation is, you have lots of metrics, lots of data, lots of, different aspects captured, and then you just, pick up the ones you think have the most importance, Pareto principle, basically. But that does not happen every time, of course. And then I would say, yeah, if you have the data, rely on it. If you don't have the data, rely on whatever you have, yeah, because you still need to have you need to make this decision in the end of the day. Worst scenario to me here is no decision rather than, decision done on maybe incomplete or picture, or not done on intuition just because I'm thinking it's wrong, right?
Zsolt, where the balance lies for you?
I think it very much depends on what Stan has said. So like it depends on the type of decision and the environment. So what we usually use for this in the trainings, in decision making, we use this Kinevin framework, and you might be familiar with this, but we can definitely share with the audience. So and it has like these 4 domains, like the simple decisions, complicated, complex, and chaotic. So I think one of the choices you need to make is like which area your decision falls into, and because like complex environment, most of uncertain environments are complex as well. So it means that, as I said, you don't know where you want to go to. You don't have actually. That's why you don't have options. So you need to test. You need to experience. You need to move forward, act something. Versus if you know the goal, that's a complicated one. You know the goal, you have actually a lot of options, and you need to choose from the options to get there. And that's that's the complicated version, where you can actually plan and have pros and cons for different options and so on. So you can use methods around that. But when you have in a complex or chaotic domain, you need to act and not plan.
And John, does it differ on the organization level?
I would like to comment the chaotic part of it. No, I think for me it is that the data's a tool. It depends. As we just discussed, data plus wisdom would be the ideal combination. So it depends. I think you have to be able to have the ability, I think, as Stan said earlier, to separate the good data from the bad data, or recognize when the pattern isn't as you think it should be. So I think it's the combination of the two, and it just depends. And I like the framework that Zsolt just mentioned. It that resonates quite well. And if you for people thinking of how to move forward, not sure how to make a decision, I think something like that would be very helpful.
As we are approaching the end of our today's session, I will reshare the screen once again, because I would like our audience to help us select what will be the topic for episode 15 of the Let's Ask Expert initiative. So I would like to invite our participants to join the Mentimeter, and I'm sharing the link in the chat, or you can just go to the webpage menti.com and type in the code 41407977. And I hope you will be able to help us select what will be the topic for episode 15. But while we wait for the answers from our participants and from our audience today, I would like to ask you this question. Knowing now what you know after so many years of your career, what decision making advice would you give to yourself at the start of your career? So, Zsolt, maybe let's start with you.
Yeah. So I would say you can always make a different decision. You always have the power to make a different decision. So don't be afraid to make the first one.
Okay. I'm sharing the screen. We see more and more answers up here. So thank you for our participants. Stan, what advice would you give to yourself?
I would say I would advise myself that you miss all the shots you never take, right? So try it. I would say try it, even if you can fail, especially if these are, again, not life-threatening decisions, but more like something related to, private life or hobbies or whatever, education or work. Still, I would rather tell myself to try rather than not. Because I remember myself being in these situations, and sometimes I never made a decision to try something, at all, and that may not be the best decision from the inside, from my perspective now.
John?
I'm going to be very boring and agree with both of these guys. Trust yourself. Have confidence that the person who gave you the responsibility to make a decision obviously thinks you're worth it. You have the skills and experience to be where you are. Make the decision.
All right, awesome, great. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us today. And it seems that based on the votes from participants, the system thinking will be the topic of episode 15. So while AI may still be the headline of this week's conference, I think it's important to remember that the real impact and the real outcome still comes from the choices that we make as professionals. And I hope that the information our experts shared with you today will be helpful in your further career growth. So let us continue to develop our soft skills, continue to develop our decision-making skill, because that's where our advantage lies. So I do hope to speak to you again in the next episode, and we will discuss the topic of system thinking. And Zsolt, Stan, John, it has been such a great pleasure to have you here with us today. I very much appreciate our conversation that we had today, and nothing left for me to say but to give a very warm thank you from the bottom of my heart, and to hope to see you again in the future. And I do hope to see you on next episodes. And for now, stay safe, stay healthy, stay happy, and I hope to see you again in the next episode.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Thank you. Cheers.
Bye, everyone.